Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing YRO from Play to Z Games. YRO is a 1 to 5 player tableau building game in which you're going to be building out a 3x3 grid as you try to figure out how to get the most points more than other players before game end is triggered. I should also note, I call it YRO because I'm not entirely sure if it's supposed to be Euro or whatever, but I'm just calling it YRO because I think it says YRO. I'm not going to try to pronounce that Euro. That's a different spelling. Anyways, YRO, how do you play the game? Well, you're going to start off with 5 money, and you're also going to start off with a hand of cards. From there, you can go ahead and just follow these steps on your player board, because that gives you everything you need to know. Step 1 is you can discard any number of your cards and then draw back up to 5. That gives the players a lot of control over ensuring they have the right combination of cards in their hand. For example, I got these yellows over here that I love. Maybe I can kind of pair up this one. No, I'm going to discard these two and then draw 2 new cards. We'll see how it all plays out, but that's what I'm going to do for the beginning over here. From there, step 2 is players can recruit adventurers. You can either recruit no adventurers and get $2. Generally not recommended. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. You can alternatively recruit 2 adventurers and pay their cost, or you can recruit 1 adventurer and get a $1 discount on that adventure. And if it costs 0, you just get $1. You basically get $1. You get $1 if you do 1 adventurer. So 2 adventurers, regular cost. 1 adventurer, get $1. 0 adventurers get $2. The adventurers are going to go into a 3x3 grid as you build them out. Now, I do have some yellows and some greens here, so I could probably start off with this. It's not a bad thing to do. This is a very aggressive start. Let's go ahead and play these. We're going to play these into my grid as my 2 adventurers. So over here, I got them, 2 adventurers. They're going into my 3x3 grid. I can define the grid as I go. So for example, the 3rd card doesn't have to go here. It could go here, although honestly, I haven't seen a real reason why the left versus right would strongly matter, at least not from any of the cards I've played. A higher or lower, yes. Left or right, not so much. But to that end, these cards go into my grid, and right now I'm going to go ahead and do the first step, which is on these cards, I'm going to increase my magic level 1 for each card because that's what they do. I'm going to grab my magic level and go up to 2. This is where you can track your magic and your technology levels, which many things will reference. That's going to be playing the cards, doing their card playability. You can see it has that over there, specifically referencing this symbol over here, showing that you get that when you play the card. When all players have played the cards, you're going to go to step 3. You're going to add up the combat power of your top cards, meaning specifically, in this case, I would add the combat power of these 2 cards, but if I play them down like this instead, I would only add the combat power of this card. So it's always going to be the front cards in your lanes that you add that power. And yes, I could place these over here right now, and then later play on top of them. That would be totally fine. The grid is built as you build it, so you do have some flexibility there. In this case, my total combat power is 6, so I'm going to make my power over here into 6 on this combat power track. And then over here, I'll look, this one says I get an additional 2 power per magic level. This one says I get 1 power per magic level. I'm at magic level 1 right now, which means I'm going to get 3 additional power. 1, 2, 3. My total power is 9. That's going to be the combat step, and then we go ahead and check for combat to see who won. This is where you have a grid that does depend on the player count. For example, in a 2-player game, first player would get 4 points, second player would get no points. That is going to tier upwards at higher player counts, giving a variety of points to different players depending on how well their combat was relative to the other players. Let's pretend for a second that green is at 7. Boom, I'm going to go ahead and get 4 points because I got more combat power in my starting cards, and I'll take those 4 points for a 2-player game. Again, this will vary depending on the player count. That's step 3. So again, you discard your cards to choose your hand, you play 1, 2, or 0 cards, you check your combat power, whatever it's been changed to since the last adjustment, and then you see who wins combat. Then you get a step 4, you produce magic or technology. This isn't going to be relevant for any of the cards right here, but let me go ahead and find you one just to show you what it looks like. Over here, we actually have a double. If we had this in our grid, which I'm not going to keep here, this one would produce 1 magic and 1 technology. Both of these, again, that symbol shows you the phase. This one produces for both, which means I would tick up both my markers if I had that card. I don't, so I won't, but that's the basic idea. Some cards will constantly increase your grid, not just when you play it. Then you go to step 5, where you get 3 money plus any money for adventurers. Again, you could look at adventurers. If I had placed this adventurer over here, I would get an additional 1 money because this card has a money ability, but you get 3 money plus any money from adventurers you earn. That is step 5. And then in step 6, you check for victory points. Again, different symbols over here, but this symbol, for example, over here would be I get 1 victory point per magic level in this phase over here. So right now it'd be 1 victory point, but you can see that will slowly power up. It's 1, 2, 3, and then 4 magic level, and technology level for that matter, in the game. And those are the 6 steps. Go ahead, let's say I'll take my hand right now, I'll go back to step 1, continue the cycle, draw up. In this case, do I want to keep my cards? I have these magic ones. I'm going to discard 1 more card and then draw back up until I have 5 cards, giving me control over my hand. And then we continue the cycle of trying to play more cards, pay for more cards, and build out our grid. The other thing you should note is that you may have noticed these colors on the cards. That's going to give you bonuses when you complete the various rows. So for example, right now, if I were to play another card in this row, like this one over here, this would mean that I have 3 cards of this color in this row. You'll see cards have 2 colors, allowing you to play into rows and columns. And sometimes if you manage it perfectly, you can get a perfect grid. But in this case right now, forgetting the rest of it, I would get for this column, I have all 3 in that column, and I would get the bonus on the bottom. I would get 1 money as well as 3 victory points because that's the bonus. But there are different bonuses. There's victory points, there's magic, there's money, technology, all these different bonuses you can get depending on when you build out those rows and which color, which faction you built out those rows in. That's the basic idea of the game. You play until either a player crosses 40 points or until a player has a full grid of cards, finish the round, and see who has the most points, and that is going to be the winner of YRO. There's also a solo mode, which I haven't played, so I can't comment heavily on that, as well as these objectives. Objectives are going to give you some cards you can play out that players can go for, and it gives you extra points to whoever achieves a certain objective first. I was going to give you some thoughts on this, but I'll give you my thoughts on it soon. Basically, it's a variable thing. Throw them into the game if you want, and it gives you some objectives to go for. There's also an initial draft you can do, so some bunch of small modules or variations as far as how you can dive into the game. With that, let's go into my review of what I like, don't like, can see others not liking, all of that and more. Links and timestamps down below, starting off with what I like. I'll start off with the art. I don't just like the art in this game, I also like how it's leaning into a chibi anime style, while also not leaning too far into, I don't know how to best phrase it, but usually chibi anime styles can lean a bit more into the adult territory. This does so in a very family-friendly way. I really like the art styling. Again, this kind of art I find, like outside of games like Crossmaster, it's very hard to find games that have this art style in this family-friendly approach, which I like because I think it's very cute overall. The combos in the game are going to be the biggest thing. You build up these chaining combos. You go heavy on magic, heavy on technology, or you get the dragons, which are just super powerful. There's all these things you can do. There's archers that can shoot from the back row. There's different card combinations you're going to chain together that will give you either a combination of power for the fights, they'll give you point scoring. If you get like 1 point for every magic level you're at and you have magic level 3, that's 3 points you're getting extra per round. Combine that with winning a few fights and you are well on your way to victory, but you also need to combo that with playing a card that's going to give you 2 magic as you play it, so you're constantly trying to figure out the right way to combo as you build towards your 9 cards. And layering into those rows and columns really pays off. If you can get extra chunks of anything, like again magic, if you can build out a column of magic here, getting an influx of 2 magic, boosting your token faster to the next level, which again it can help your attack over here, your offense. It can also help you get victory points as you saw from other cards. Being able to just chain full rows or columns into additional bonuses that help you with your economy, your victory points, or your combos is just overall very satisfying. Although speaking of those bonuses, I do find there's a good tenseness around when to focus on those bonuses versus when to give them up. Again, you get bonuses for columns and rows that fit the same type, which instinctively means you want to go for that, but if you have the right combination of cards, sometimes you just can't afford to. You're like, well, this is going to be really good for my engine, but I am going to lose out on building out a certain bonus. How do I want to try to approach that? You have to make those decisions, and they're never particularly easy, but then again, a lack of easy decisions is what I like in games. That sense of, it's not obvious. I have to make a play and try to figure out what it is I want to do. The card cycling in the game is great. The fact that you have your hand of cards and every round you can discard as much as you want and draw back up really lets you feed into finding those right combos. So if there are things you want to do, I find that this is one of those games where I get less stuck on did the right cards come out, because you have the agency of being able to cycle through a full 5 new cards and figuring out which 1 or 2 of those cards you want to play. I rarely am fully stuck. Sure, there's better combinations, better cards, and there might be a card in the deck that's really good for your engine, but I rarely found myself completely stuck. It's usually just a question of did I get good or did I get better as I try to build out my 9 card board. As far as things I don't like in the game, I don't know if it feels balanced on combat versus engine building. I think combat matters. I don't want to say it doesn't matter. Combat definitely matters. You get extra points every single round from it. For me, I have found that the chunk of the points tend to come from building up some sort of point scoring engine of usually going high in either magic or technology and then getting cards that reward you for that. It doesn't mean combat doesn't matter. If you have other players focusing on their engine, then whoever's able to best combine the best of both worlds will probably win. But you do, when you're playing the game, I personally find if you're choosing between combat or engine building, always choose the engine building because that's usually where the points are. And I wish it was a bit more balanced so that I felt there was a bit more of a choice as what to do as opposed to, oh yeah, this is the thing that's going to ramp up and score more points, so I'm going to do this more than anything else. So I just wish there was a little, again, combat matters, it still matters. I wish there was a little bit more balance as far as those different approaches in the game. I'll say that when you're playing with those bonus cards, I highly recommend, this is not in the rules, but I highly recommend that you bump up the point scoring that's going to end the game. Meaning effectively, when you're playing with these, there are extra points being given out, so I recommend play to 50 points, or until you have your full grid, either one of those, because otherwise I find that these just give you an extra way to get extra points into the game very quickly, and I kind of want to fill out my whole grid, or at least have a normal length game. So I recommend if you do play with these, add in an extra 10 points. Although of course if you like it the way it is, you can also do that. This is what I don't like. As far as what I can see others not liking, I will say it's not as good at 2 players. It's still fine, but I do think that there's more nuance at higher player counts, both in terms of drafting as well as in terms of the combat and the extra points you can get there. One of the reasons again that discrepancy I mentioned about combat is more pronounced in a 2-player game. It's there at all player counts, but it's more pronounced in a 2-player game because second place gets 0 points. So if you're not excelling at combat, you're kind of stiffed out of combat, versus your engine is always building for you no matter what happens. So I think it is better at higher player counts. I'd say probably 3 or 4 players is the sweet spot, but honestly it's decent at all player counts. Well, I haven't played solo, so I can't say that. It's decent at all player counts. I'd say 3 and 4 is the sweet spot. And then similar to my complaint around combat not feeling as strong, I do find there are broken combos. Now I don't mind that. I kind of like having that aspect where I really build a strong magic engine and I'm getting 15 points a turn. Like that has happened to me and it's really satisfying. But if you're the other players at the table and someone else managed to work their way into a 15-point a turn engine and you're not, it could be a little deflationary as you're playing it. As far as final thoughts on YRO, I overall enjoy this game. It's very satisfying, very easy to play, great art, teaches in 2 minutes, plays in 30, works well at different player counts. Also, I probably should play it solo and see how that is. But overall, it's just a very charming game of building out a 9-card grid. My biggest issue with it is the balance aspect of it, where I feel that there is certain things that are better, whether individual cards or pathways towards victory. But outside of that, I've had a lot of fun playing this. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Ecosystem. There's a few games in that series, but if you like building out a grid and trying to figure out how to optimize the score of that grid, I think it's a 3x4 grid if not mistaken, but check out that game. I think it's very solid. And then even more so to that point, check out Castle Combo from Pandasaurus. Another game where you're going to be building out a 3x3 grid, not focused on combat, just focused on your own little thing, but it's very satisfying, very tricky, and if you like what YRO is doing, I definitely think you'll enjoy Castle Combo as well. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.